Hello, and welcome to Kindred Spirits Book Club Live. I'm Reagan Duffy.
And I'm Kelly Gruner.
And we are the Kindred Spirits Book Club podcast. We are two grown ladies geeking out about Anne of Green Gables. And today we are live at the Ella Montgomery Conference on Prince Edward Island.
We are here in front of an audience. Thank you guys all so much for being here with us today. The Kindred Spirits Book Club podcast is based in Los Angeles, California. We recognize that we occupy land originally and still inhabited and cared for by the Tongva, Tataviam, Serrano, Kij, and Chumash peoples. And we are recording tonight live at the University of PEI, located on Prince Edward Island, Canada, which is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq. We are so delighted to be here tonight and so happy to have you all with us.
So, in case you didn't notice, we've never done a live podcast before. This is a very new experience to us. Normally, it's just like Kelly and I in our pajamas in two different rooms.
In two different households.
Just like yakking at each other. So this is super fun.
Usually not wearing like even reasonably nice clothes. Usually we're in our pajamas. We're kicking kittens and dogs out of our room. This is a totally new experience.
Exactly. So thank you guys for being our guinea pigs. We are going to have some opportunities later in the episode for specific audience questions and audience participation. But along the way, feel free to laugh and clap if we're funny.
Feel free to be in conversation with us. If you have something you want to just like chime in, you're like, oh, by the way, that makes me think of. We're just going to freewheel it and see what happens.
And listen, magic of editing, we can do a lot with that.
Yeah.
So if you listen to our podcast, you may find that we sound slightly less eloquent today than we do on the podcast. I take out a lot of likes. And
she made us sound a lot smarter than I think we actually are. So we also have something really special for our audience today. Grocery store cookies. No. The bar is on the floor. But you all got a bingo card as you came in. So if you hear us mention something that's on your card, please mark it off. If you get a bingo, come on up at the end of the session and claim your prize. For our listeners at home, when this episode drops, we will have a link in show notes for you to download your very own bingo card and play along with us. We won't be able to get you all prizes, but do keep an eye out on our Instagram, which is kindredspirits.bookclub, because you never know if we will have something special for you there.
Okay, so who are we and what's the Kindred Spirits Book Club? We're a podcast dedicated to doing deep dives on Anne of Green Gables and all of Ella Montgomery's work. We explore the books through the lens of theme and character, and we started as a friendship project as a way of nerding out about our favorite book together. But now we've grown into a podcast that reaches thousands of people in multiple countries,
ish, more than 1,000.
Right, exactly. We have 5 seasons and 92 episodes, and we've fully explored all of the Anne books. Well, not fully. Obviously, you guys know there's more exploration to do, as well as we've done a few episodes on some other Ella Montgomery books, and we have plans to keep going. Our next season is going to be all about Emily, so if you are Emily fans, stay tuned in the fall. And we've been really lucky over the last couple of years to have authors, editors, academics, actors, artists come to the podcast over the last 4 years to teach us more about the books and Ella Montgomery. And we've learned so much along the way, more than we could ever have dreamed when we first started this pod. Guys, this has been a wild ride.
You know, we always say the podcast is a labor of love, right? Neither of us are professional podcasters. We're not professional writers. Neither of us is an academic in the literature space. This podcast is not monetized in any way. If anything, we lose so much money. I'll send you our credit card bills from this trip.
Exactly. The big problem is that we started in Instagram, like to kind of promote the pod. And then, well, you have to have pretty copies of the books, right? To post on Instagram. And then in order to do that, you have to buy pretty copies of the books. And
then you have to hire a professional photographer to come and take pictures of you and your best friend
holding the pretty books.
It's just spiraled, you guys. But so this is all really to say that for purposes of this podcast, we are coming to the books from the perspective of enthusiastic fans who can't get enough of talking about these books that we love. We love learning more about Montgomery and her works, and we want to take our audience with us as we continue to learn and find more to discuss. So the theme of the conference, right, is Ella Montgomery and change. And I think that's really appropriate to talk about in the context of podcasting, because podcasting is a newer medium, right? Especially in the context of Ella Montgomery's work. There's a lot of interpretive work that has been done in and around Montgomery, but not that much has been done in this, particular podcasting space, right? We're sort of meeting the moment with some new technology. So we think this is a really new and exciting, fun way of engaging with Montgomery's works. And honestly, you can engage with anything with podcasts. If this is not a medium that you guys are that familiar with, I would just say, listening to a podcast provides a way for a listener to enhance their own experience of whatever that original work is, right? You can seek out content that either contextualizes it or otherwise adds to it or celebrates something. And in that experience of podcasting, that's also done that for us, right? It's provided us an avenue to explore and change and grow our own relationship with Ella Montgomery's works in ways that we could never have predicted when we started out.
Definitely not. So we usually begin an episode by choosing a kindred spirit of the episode. Maybe it's a character we're going to do a character study about, maybe a character that embodies the theme of the episode. But today we're going to take advantage of having a live audience here, and we're going to ask you guys all to vote on our kindred spirits of the episode. So you're going to scan the QR code on the screen. So everybody, you should be able to see on your phone your 4 choices.
Oh, I see the votes coming in.
You have to wait.
Okay.
That's how voting works. Okay, so we're going to close our voting. Let's reveal our big winner.
Oh, wow. That is really close. Prince Edward Island.
Prince Edward Island. Okay.
You'd love to see it.
And now we can go back here.
So yeah, what does it mean that PEI is our kindred spirit of the episode? I mean, I think it's interesting, right? Because PEI is just as much a character in Montgomery's works as Anne, Emily, Pat, or Jane, or any of the heroines we love. Montgomery writes so vividly about the beauty of PEI that it's like, people from all over the world are inspired to make this pilgrimage here, the same pilgrimage that many of us have made today. And we've got to say, Maud did not oversell it. It's so, especially coming here from the West Coast, it's so incredibly different and really special for us to see. We all fell in love with PEI when Anne is sort of rhapsodizing about the beauty that she sees around her, right? When she's first coming over and talking about how she'd always imagined to live here. But then when you're actually here, all of a sudden it's like you are in the pages of these books, right? You've got the sound of the wind in the trees and the birds trilling, the waves crashing on the shore. And we were saying that when we were at Green Gables Heritage Place, we could almost hear Anne and Diana's laughter coming from around the corner. So while we don't get to go any farther into our book than that brief step, we do get to explore all of the real PEI right in front of us, from the famous red roads to the lighthouses dotting the coast to the fields of wildflowers and the seaside stands serving lobster rolls and mussels. Don't worry, everybody, my lobster roll rankings are coming soon. PEI inspired Montgomery's writing, and her writing inspired so many people to come here and experience this magic for themselves.
And then the other thing we like to do every episode is a quote of the episode. And so, of course, none seems more relevant than this one when we're at this conference surrounded by people who are all drawn here by the love of the same author. Kindred spirits aren't so scarce as I used to think. It's splendid to find out there's so many of them in the world. And honestly, the experience of doing this podcast has really shown us how much that's true. What started as just the two of us has connected us to so many people all over the world. When we started, we could never have imagined being here on PEI recording with a live audience, knowing that thousands of folks will listen to this recording soon. And in a world that sometimes feels too crowded to find each other and too divided to connect with each other, it's a testament to the power of Anne's story that we can find so many kindred spirits through doing this podcast. So thank you. Thank you guys for being those people.
So we're going to do a super short podcast primer just to make sure everyone's starting from the same information. And if you aren't familiar with podcasts at all, you can basically think of this as like an on-demand radio show. They started in roughly 2003 when RSS feeds were invented. It's not that important, but that's the web feed that lets your podcast player access that content. So the term podcast is a mashup of iPod and broadcast. There you go. Remember iPods? And in 2005, Apple added support for podcasts in iTunes. So then all of a sudden they were everywhere and they were super mainstream. The fun thing about podcasts is anyone can record one. You can upload it to that podcast hosting platform, whichever you like to use, and that can then submit it to the relevant RSS feeds. So they really took off around 2014 in pop culture, essentially, which is, we're talking about Ella Montgomery and change. We're talking about new media. That's what we're talking about. This is like technology that's really only been around for about 20 years and really only been common for about 10. As I was saying earlier, there's all types of podcasts. So whatever you're interested in, I promise there's something there, which is frightening if you think about it. But whether you want journalism, true crime, interviews, really any topic you could possibly want. They tend to be episodic. Generally, there's a consistent structure, kind of depends on the hosts. They can be conversational, like Reagan's and mine. Oftentimes they're solo hosted. And, some of them can kind of be going on for years and years. Some are limited series. Some are meant to be listened to in a specific order. Some you can drop in or out. Here's the fun thing. There are like no rules. Again, it's new technology. It's a new way of engaging. And so everybody does it pretty differently. Reagan and I do it, I think, differently than other folks. How many podcasts, spend the time that we do with one single book? We're like, okay, this book that we like, we're going to talk about it for 9 hours. Are you guys ready? And although there are other podcasts out there that do deep dives that we were inspired by, that's kind of a pretty niche genre. So thank you guys for coming with us on this ride.
Well, radio has been around a long time. And as we said, podcasts are much newer and they share some DNA with radio, but there's something about the immediacy of listening to a podcast that's different. Certainly because the ease of making a podcast means that it's not confined to professional spaces anymore. If you think about radio, like those are professional people who are doing radio. Most people don't have access to be able to just put that out there in the world. But maybe the most interesting change is that you get to choose when you listen. You can stop an episode at any time. You can come back to it, pick it up, replay favorite episodes, jump around in listening to a podcast. You can take it with you wherever you're going. So if you have a phone, you can listen to a podcast. And that means that podcasts are living in people's ears as they go about their lives. You could take us with you when you're walking the dog. We can keep you company when you're doing chores or other work. That kind of portability, that everywhere-ness to a podcast, make it kind of a unique kind of entertainment. You can multitask with a podcast much easier than if you're watching something. And it can be a way to make something that's boring or annoying or difficult a little bit more enjoyable. It can give you somewhere to go in your mind, or at least a friend or a topic to bring along with you.
Generally, listening to podcasts is like a solo endeavor, like reading. Even if someone has recommended it to you, you might engage with it on your own in your own time. But because it's an audio medium and because it's often conversational, podcasters can feel like friends, even more so than authors, right? Because we are like right there. So you think about the closeness you feel with like an author you particularly love, and the same sort of idea carries over to what we're doing. I know we really feel that when we listen to the podcast that we love. Like I'm just hanging out with my buddies who happen to live in my phone. And I knew when we started that we really wanted to be the kind of podcast where, people felt like they really knew us, that they were hanging out with us, that we were all just talking about books together. We really wanted this to feel like a living book club, something that was portable that you could bring with you and you could go to book club whenever you wanted. So that's what we wanted to do there. And we really also think of this podcast as an extension of our friendship. Reagan and I have been friends for about 20 years, and we wanted to make room for listeners to feel like they're part of our friendship as well. So how did we get here?
5 years ago, Kelly and I, as we said, two longtime friends, we started batting around the ideas for a podcast. Anytime we had like a really deep conversation, we're like, we could do a podcast. People would listen to us. Maybe not. And why? Well, so COVID lockdown was over. Our lives were getting full and busy again. And during COVID, we had kind of podded together. You only had kind of a few people that you socially interacted with. And so we really did that a lot during COVID. But as lives got busy, we don't live that close to each other in Los Angeles. Like,
we're not down the street neighbors.
No.
Would that we were.
I know. If only. Oh God, our husbands would be. Kelly's at our house again. We knew if we didn't have a specific reason to get together regularly, it'd be so easy to let our friendship kind of take a backseat to the hustle and bustle of our lives. And we also knew that thanks to all that Zoom socializing we did during COVID, that we didn't have to be in the same room to hang out. Although, of course, it is more fun to hang out in person. So like over several months, we kind of tossed around different ideas and kind of oh, this could be fun. And then the more we kind of did that, the more we started talking about it a little bit more specifically and started thinking about what are different ideas for a podcast. Like we tried on the idea of maybe an advice podcast.
I still think we do a really good advice podcast. Reagan is a therapist in her career. I'm a lawyer in my career. I feel like we are good advice givers.
Right. And okay, so I will tell you one of the things that when we're done finally with Ella Montgomery books, like in 10 years, because we got a lot to go. One of the ideas we thought about was an advice column that people write in for social problems within their Dungeons and Dragons group. Right. So both of our husbands are avid D&D players, so we have become D&D players. And listen, some of those spaces are a little socially awkward.
This is a real problem. We would be doing a service to the nerd community.
But no, we didn't go there. And we thought about kind of like a book review podcast, but there are a lot of those out there, right? Like what would we do that's bringing something interesting and different? And then we both remembered that we both love a deep dive book podcast. Like Kelly and I are always the people at the end of a book club still talking, and everybody's like, guys, we've exhausted this subject.
The wine's gone. The
book's over.
Please leave. And we're like, no, one more thing.
Right. So those are kinds of podcasts we like to listen to. And so then we're like, okay, well, we could do that. And we want to go deep in the minutia of it, but what book? Well, we were having dinner with another friend and we were both trying to convince her to read Anne of Green Gables. Like, why is this the best book? Why haven't you read it?
40 years old and she had never read it. Reagan and I were like, how could this be possible? Thank you. Correct response.
Correct response. Exactly. And we had so many things to say to our friends, like, I gotta go.
Yeah.
I got like a meeting in the morning,
like shoving the book in her
right? But that's how we knew. We're like, obviously, this has always been a book that early on in our friendship we found that we shared a love from, and so we're like, okay, Anne of Green Gables, and that the instant we said that, I think we felt like that was the right book to do.
Yeah, it was a lightning strike moment. It was like, of course, this is what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. So we went on what we call our girls' reading weekends, which is you go up to a mountain cabin, you take a pile of books, you take a bunch of snacks, take whatever drinks you like, and we read and talk all weekend. And so we thought we'd try fleshing out this idea of an Anne of Green Gables podcast, see if there was anything there. So 3 hours, one charcuterie board later, we laid out 15 episodes, and that would become the bulk of our first season, exploring Anne by character and theme, and giving it the time and attention we thought it deserved in like the podcast space.
I really need to encourage you all to, if girls reading weekends, by the way, girls is a gender neutral term in the sense, a girls reading weekend, I think, is an essential tool in your friendship toolkit. Please gather a group of friends, go someplace remote where there's nothing to do, bring a stack of books and just hang out. It is the best thing you could do.
Yep.
So yeah, we started, right? We had nothing. We didn't know what we were doing. We just had a lot of enthusiasm. We were ready to make mistakes, right? We were ready to take on a new venture as two, like 40-something-year-old women. We knew we could talk. We knew we had the ability to yap, but we were really learning as we went. So we were writing out episodes jointly in a Google Doc, and then we were recording them from there. We were sure only our moms were going to listen, but we thought,
and to be honest, maybe not to every episode. I love my mom, but I think she dropped off somewhere around season 4. She's like, I'm gonna catch up.
Every time I talk to my mom, she's like, I'm not caught up yet, but it sounds like you girls are having fun.
Love you, Mom.
They'll never listen, Reagan. But we did hope that Anne fans would find us along the way. And I don't think we could have imagined how far we've grown in that time. Not only just the sheer quantity of episodes that we have, but also the fact that we've done 2 trips now to this amazing conference, that we've grown a global listenership. And it's not just a global listenership, it's a super engaged listenership. Our people email us constantly and we get lots of DMs and we get so much like activation on social media. People were looking for a book club. They were looking for a place to talk about this, and like kind of unwittingly we stepped into that role. People love sharing their first memories of reading Anne. They love sharing what it was like to see the 1985 Sullivan miniseries. They love telling us why we're wrong about Anne with an E. They love showing us their Anne tattoos. And then, of course, we also have absolutely amazing, mind-blowing conversations with many of you, right? Scholars and academics who are specializing in this work. And you guys are teaching us. And it's just so wonderful to have so many people to geek out about Anne with. Here's the thing. You don't take on hobbies in middle age all that often. So working on this podcast has really challenged us to learn and grow. So we've had to, skills max, we've had to develop and hone skills in podcasting and podcast production. And we've had to learn a lot more about Montgomery and become more comfortable and confident in that knowledge. And not just of the books, but also Montgomery's life. Most of you know we haven't read the journals. We'll get there. But here's the thing, you do a big project like this with your friend, and it's not just your skills and knowledge that grow, it's your friendship. So our friendship too has changed and taken on a new layer of focus and competency and shared purpose.
As our families will attest, this podcast is a lot like only slightly amped up version of being trapped in the same car with us on a road trip. Sorry guys. Every time we sit down to record, I'm excited to talk about whatever the theme of the episode is with Kelly. And even though we script fairly heavily in order to keep ourselves on track, there are always new ideas that come up as we talk to each other and bounce ideas off each other.
And you're seeing that in real time, right? Obviously, we have a script in front of us, but we keep taking on tangents. So.
Right. We do have to cut out a lot of chit chat as we derail a recording because one of us remembered something that we forgot to tell the other. So listen, there's a lot of middle school tea and family gossip that's lying on the cutting room floor.
Maybe we'll release that as a special episode.
I'm so close to interrupting this podcast to tell you what Alice just told me. So one of the special things about podcasting is that it's giving you a space to nerd out about in whatever way you want on a topic, whether you're listening to the pod or you're creating one yourself. You can go as deep or as broad as whatever you're interested in. You can drill down to the tiny minutia of a topic, go wide ranging and make lots of connections between topics. You can approach it from a unique angle or an unconventional perspective. And the lovely thing about the internet is that it's big enough to explore whatever you want and engage in whatever way you want to. And that engagement can look a lot of different ways. So we went with a podcast uniquely suited to our skills as pro yappers. But fans who want to go deep into a fandom they love can find each other in so many different ways. There's email newsletters, Discord servers, fan art, fan fiction, Facebook groups, Etsy shops, YouTube, short form videos like TikTok. If you're a fan of something, you can find a space to find your people online.
Yeah, I think that's another beautiful thing about sort of our changing media landscape is that whatever you love, you will find your people online somewhere, probably on Archive of Our Own.
Which if you guys don't know is the major fan fiction archive. If you've ever watched something, listened to something, or read something, had a stray thought, somebody has written a fan fiction about it.
I shared this on the podcast recently, but in the off chance that you guys haven't heard it. So I went on a deep dive on Archive of Our Own to see what kind of Montgomery related fan fiction there was out there. Cause we've read some that are genuinely really beautiful and lovely. My sort of the unsung hero for me of the Anne series is Cornelia Bryant. I love her to pieces. So of course I had to search the tag Cornelia Bryant / Marshall Elliott just to see what was up. I thought maybe some intrepid writer had put their wedding night up on the archive for me. Unfortunately not yet. But there's a very cute proposal scene for Miss Cornelia up there. So go seek it out, my friends. Okay, so that's it. That's the part of the story about why we started the podcast, how we kind of got here. We wanted to this space and time. We wanted this rules free, do whatever we want to do zone. We didn't want to worry about boring everybody at an actual book club. So we were opt in. I really want to come back to this idea that there's no rules, right? This is what has given us the freedom to sort of develop and grow the way we have. Although we had a lot to learn, we weren't doing this for a grade in a class. We're not writing a paper. This isn't our job. We didn't need to stay on a narrow topic. We didn't even need to make sure that, everything we said was the most brilliant thought anyone's ever thought. Believe me, none of them are. We just had to be interesting enough that some people would listen. But other than that, we could do what we wanted to do, which was spend a ton of time analyzing our favorite books. I think it's worth focusing on a little. And I'd like to actually invite everybody listening to take a sort of no rules approach to whatever you love most too. It is worth it, you guys. It is worth it. We have always been super clear that we are fans and enthusiasts. We are not experts, but there are no rules that say that enthusiasts can't do this. So we're doing it with a pretty raw set of skills and some ideas, but no real expertise. We're doing it just to see how it unfolds. And all of us can do this. You can take anything you're passionate about and pour time and effort and see what happens.
Folks in our lives who were not familiar with Anne of Green Gables as a book specifically wondered whether we were going to have enough material with what they perceived to be just a sweet, nostalgic kids book. And that just goes to show they don't know us at all. And we were pretty sure that we would have enough material just from our conversations casually. But of course, we didn't know until we actually got here. But you know what? You don't have to know to start. It's a very low-cost hobby, podcasting.
Until you start traveling.
Before the travel. Technically on the page, it is a low-cost hobby. And we figured, hey, whenever we run out of things to say, we can stop.
The stakes are really manageable, right? And this is just two grown ladies geeking out about Anne of Green Gables, and nothing more or less. But what we ended up doing is we gave ourselves permission to take up space. We weren't waiting for approval. We weren't waiting until we reached some specific level of expertise before believing that we are worthy to do this. We decided that passion and enthusiasm was enough. And so, having given ourselves that permission, when we really got into the book, we really let ourselves go deep, and we really started following every question or tangent to see where it led. We kept finding more and more layers and more things that we wanted to learn, and more reasons to invite other people into the conversation with us and help us learn. And that's what is so incredibly special about Maud's work. Of course, I mean, look at everybody here. We're all doing this right now in real time. There's so much more depth and nuance than you can see from just the dust jacket with the little red-haired girl in a straw hat. So once we allowed ourselves to deeply engage with analyzing the books as much as we wanted to, we had the same realization that I think a lot of people in this room have also had, that this is a work that rewards close reading. This is work that rewards analysis. This rewards time and effort. And although sometimes it feels like almost indulgent that we get to spend so much time on a single issue or theme, we know it's all coming from a place of authentic enthusiasm, pleasure, interest, focus, and ultimately devotion.
And even though we weren't sure anyone would ever listen, what happened instead is that the audience who wanted the same thing, hours and hours and hours of discussion about the Anne series, they found us along the way, and many of them have shared their inspiration with us as well. We've been privileged to speak to many creators who are inspired by Montgomery, like the artist Brianna Corscott. I hope you guys all saw her beautiful art out there today, who beautifully brought Anne to life in a new picture book for young readers. People like the editor and publisher Katie Stewart, who annotated an Anne of Green Gables for middle grade readers. Honestly, if you're trying to introduce, I gotta rep her for a second. If you're trying to introduce like a middle grade student, like a middle schooler to Anne of Green Gables, that's the edition to give them. We got really amazingly lucky. People like the producer, director, playwright Kat Sandler, whose recent stage adaptation of Anne of Green Gables was a smash at the Stratford Theater Festival last summer. And can we geek out about this a quick second?
Please. They need to know.
So Kat Sandler found us. She was writing the play. She had been invited to write the play, and she started doing research, and she was researching kind of the idea of adaptations of Anne, and she found our podcast, and she listened to us. I don't know. And then she emailed us to say how helpful we had been, and did we want to chat? And we're like, heck yeah. Tell us more. And we went from there. But that was something we never could have anticipated when we started putting this work out there.
I'm waiting for our invitation to the screening of her next big show. So yeah, and I think that another way when we're speaking about spending time in Montgomery's world, another way of thinking about it is, travel is coming here, visiting the island, attending the conference. This is all another form of like doing that deep dive, right? The same deep dive we're doing on the podcast, you guys are actually all doing in real time today, right now by being here. We had so much fun the preceding week learning about all of the places that bring Montgomery's stories to life. We went through so many historic homes, we were walking the trails, and taking on some of that literary pilgrimage that just speaks again to that rich literary, cultural, and geographic legacy. And so I think it's just interesting. We've really learned over the course of this project that while the book might be a starting point, when you find yourself in the world, in the community, there's so many forms that sheer enthusiasm can take.
There's a specific joy in going deep in the way we have, the joy of overanalyzing with a friend. And you know that feeling, right? When someone matches your obsession on a thing and is willing to spend way too much time with you, giving you insights and building off your ideas as well. Like that's a special kind of synergy. And what we found is that it's more than just finding common ground. It's about investing in our friendship by going on this journey together. Like You know, when you go on a road trip with a friend and you're taking different roles in the car, maybe someone is driving and the other person is navigating. Kelly is always navigating. She's got the best sense of direction. Someone is Googling where to stop for lunch, or if there's any weird roadside attractions worth a visit.
If by weird roadside attractions, you mean iconic must-see destinations.
Maybe one of you creates a playlist and the other brings the snacks. And
I
then
create the playlist, she brings the snacks.
And then on the road trip itself, it's this shared project together, right? Like you want to get wherever you're going, but the ride is also part of the fun and it's part of your relationship. And if you get lost, okay, well, that's fine. You're not alone. You're doing this together, and you might end up some places you hadn't picked out yourself, but your friend wants to pet the reindeer at the reindeer farm. And you know what? That was pretty cool.
As a matter of fact, I did want to pet the reindeer and they were really cool.
And maybe your friend teaches you how to drive a stick shift and you both learn the hard way about what the weird sound in the engine meant. And if you chose the right friend for that trip, you end up closer than ever and seeing things that you never would have seen before. You discovered new skills and capabilities and ending up with like fodder for 100 inside jokes. And so if you add an audience, that's what podcasting with your besties like.
A long but apt metaphor.
Listen, I can work a metaphor into the ground with the best of them.
I don't know what the like reindeer analog is in our podcast, but I'm sure we'll find it. So Reagan and I have been on plenty of road trips together, but it took us a lot of time to figure out exactly how we work together on this project. So neither of us knew anything about podcasting. Like I said, this was skills maxing for us. We really had to start from scratch. We had to figure out how to write an episode together, what the balance is between script and spontaneity. And we had to learn to critique the conversations that were usually just between us, right? If you're just sitting down with your bestie and you guys are having an unfiltered conversation, you're not thinking about whether or not anyone else wants to hear this. You're just in the moment enjoying the conversation. But all of a sudden you have recorded it and you're going to put it out in the world and say, hey, other people listen to us. Like it better actually be saying something, you know? It has to be right. First of all, finish your thoughts. Don't rely on the fact that your best friend of 20 years knows how to finish your sentences. But you know, we had to listen to them with an ear for how they are going to land. We had to figure out also how to promote the podcast. We use a lot of social media, as you know, but we also had to like reach out to other podcasts and invest in our online communities and our IRL communities. And we had to do all of that while balancing full-time professional careers and family and friends. Like, you know, picking up a hobby in your 40s is great. I recommend it 10,000%, but it's an effort.
And it turns out, contrary to what our teenage selves believed, when you are an adult, time and energy is actually a limited quantity. When we find something we love, it can feel hard to give ourselves permission to spend as much time and energy on it as we would like. By doing the pod, we can find our community of folks who want to go there in that same way. And by doing that kind of provides proof or justification for spending the time and energy that we do on this. So it's kind of a cyclical, self-fulfilling cycle. Mm-hmm. And I think we've been trying to pay back that joy to our listeners and to Ella Montgomery herself by investing so much time and energy on this podcast.
Yeah, and then speaking of sort of like that cyclical thing, how investing energy then, you know, reaps dividends. Another way that we see that is how our conversations connect back to our real lives and shared experiences, right? Like one of our overarching themes is community. And producing this podcast has been community creation. Again, I don't think we knew we were doing that when we started, but it's absolutely been the case. We're meeting people who are doing similar work. We are meeting the people who are listening and who want to participate in the conversation. And we're learning about our listeners and our followers who are also engaging with us in this sort of like shared love. One very cool thing about podcasting generally is that it's really democratic. There's no actual bar of how good you have to be to start. As you can probably see, there's lots of pretty meh podcasts out there. But one thing that really changed for us as we started doing this is that we realized that we wanted to do a good job. We did want it to be more than just the two of us yapping. I mean, that's fascinating for us to listen to. But we wanted to do something a little bit better. We wanted to do something more. And we always talk about very specifically our fourth episode. So our first season, our fourth episode. Up until that, we had kind of done one episode that was an intro, two episodes that were sort of recapping the book. But this was going to be our first real in-depth episode where we were doing what we said we wanted to do. We wanted to talk about character and theme, and this was our proving ground. We decided we were going to talk about Marilla and motherhood. And we had been a little bit fooled by how easy some of our favorite podcasters made it sound. Just sounded like they were being super spontaneous and being super smart just off the cuff. And we're like, we can totally do that. And we figured that we could just sort of bullet point the episode and we would get that same result. And it was kind of a blow to realize that that was not the case. It wasn't what we had thought it was going to be.
I had tried to edit it, but we veered off on so many tangents and we didn't then get back to our original point, and we talked over each other and we started sentences we didn't finish and we like meandered around. I mean, and I look back on it and it probably wasn't awful. I mean, we probably could have put it out there, but I think at that point, if we truly thought only our moms were going to listen, we might have been fine with it, right? Like, but then we realized we kind of wanted to be good at this.
Yeah.
We wanted our podcast to be intelligent and coherent, and we wanted to do these books justice. And I think that was the deepest part. We love these books so much. We wanted to do a good job with them. And it was as we were discussing what to do with that episode that something changed for us. And we realized how seriously we wanted to take it, both the podcast and the book, which for us, not being in an academic space, still feeling like so many people thought of Anne as just a nostalgic kids book. But we wanted to take it really seriously. We wanted to spend time thinking deeply about the themes that resonated with us, make connections that we hadn't made before, and learn more about the context of these books. And we wanted to share what we came up with others in a way that invites them to think more deeply about a book that they love. So we threw it out. I still have that somewhere. I have not re-listened to it. I don't know whether it's as awful as I think it is or worse.
I'm actually going to pause you right there, Reagan, because I have a tangent that I want to share with you.
Okay, go do it.
So when you talk about like how, doing a project like this, especially with your friend, like changes things, changes the shape of your friendship. Imagine you've had a lovely friend for the past 15 years and you've only ever done fun things together. And you've only ever told each other yes.
That's true.
And then all of a sudden you do this thing together and both of you kind of realize that it kind of wasn't what you wanted it to be. And all of a sudden you have to look at each other and start saying, no, we can do better. Like that's actually a real growth moment. That was a growth moment for us.
Yeah.
And moving from friends to collaborators, from friends to creative partners was an entirely new, I would say, layer that we were not even anticipating.
Yeah. So that's when we started scripting the episodes to make sure all of our pieces connected. And that first script, oh my God, you guys, it was so cute. It was only 11 pages. But you don't want to know how long our usual scripts are.
Some of you who've been guests have seen them and know they're well into the 20s.
And then we started we found a format that worked for us and we found kind of a rhythm of how we write together that felt right. We started editing our ideas down so they flowed and supported one main concept instead of feeling like we had to like cram in every single thought we've had ever. And we learned to help each other, to give feedback on whether something worked or not. And so then we re-recorded it and it was better. It was a lot better. I mean, I do think now if we were to go back and redo that episode 4 years later, we might do it differently. I think we definitely give ourselves permission to spend longer going into detail. And I think we both figured out like a better balance. If you listen to some of our early episodes, I think it's much more obvious how much we're reading from a script. And I think we found a better balance between script and conversation and not having to feel like we read it word for word. But we were pretty proud of it. It felt like the work we put into it was reflected in the outcome that we were taking this podcast seriously. And even though it's just a hobby and not our careers, it's important enough to us to do well. And loving these books means spending time crafting something that's thoughtful and that's good work for us.
So that's when the mission of the podcast really started to change, right? It became more about us taking our audience with us as we were learning, right? We are enthusiastic amateurs. We are on a journey of learning more about these things, and you, our listeners, are coming along. So we like to share our process of thinking about these books. And I think you can, if you listen to the whole sort of arc of the seasons, you can probably hear how our thinking is growing and evolving in real time. So as we were learning, we were also inviting listeners to learn with us, to teach us, to share their thoughts, their corrections, their own ideas with us. And so we've talked a lot today about the specific nature of podcasts and how the audio and the ability to start it and stop it whenever you want gives it immediacy as a listener. That also means that you can learn anywhere and you can learn anything you want.
So you remember when you were a kid and the teacher would ask you to analyze a book or a poem or learn a concept and it felt pointless? Like, why do I even have to learn this? It doesn't mean anything in my life. And maybe I spend too much time driving the 8th grade carpool eavesdropping because that is all we talk about. But it's definitely how schools sometimes feel when you're young because you don't get to pick what you learn and then you are graded on it, right? But once you're an adult, learning for the sake of learning becomes a lot more appealing. And often it's because our lives are so busy that learning feels like luxury. There's something so fun for us in getting to stretch our creative and intellectual brains in this new way, and just because we want to. What we hope we are doing for other people is giving them a chance to learn and think critically, just for the joy of learning and thinking critically. Both of us definitely have our best ideas when we are talking to each other and writing together. One idea bounces off another and they build and grow in the best way. Like whenever I'm stuck with writing, I will literally stop mid-sentence and tell Kelly, I need to know what she thinks because that's how I'll better understand what I'm thinking. I don't have to agree with her, but when I hear what she's thinking, it helps me finish filling out a thought. And as the podcast started to grow and people started to find us, we found other people who love what we love and love to overanalyze and nerd out. And we started to refine the mission of the podcast more. We made these connections with creators and scholars, and we knew we could learn so much from them and bring that to our audience. So it's been an absolute honor to add guests to the show who help educate us and our listeners, who facilitate brilliant conversations and who are looking at these texts in ever evolving ways. So we got more and more people to bounce ideas around with and to learn and grow. Our understanding of our relationship with these books has expanded, and we feel more committed to the podcast because now it's not just us on a long road trip talking about a book we both love. It's a whole community of people who are passionate about these same characters, themes, and ideas.
So when we were thinking specifically about this Ella Montgomery and change theme, I think we would argue that the impact of the books changes whenever someone new interacts with it. The version in a new reader's mind is always going to be different. Their emotional response will always be different. The material naturally changes because people are interpreting it in a way that's particular to their own perspective, their own lived experience. And so then when that's extending out to creative work around Ella Montgomery's books, her life, her legacy, then that kaleidoscope is twisting again. There's that first layer of reading, but then when you're watching the series, seeing the play, looking at illustrations, reading a graphic novel, talking to a friend, talking to a scholar, talking to a historian, reading fan fiction, making a TikTok, all of that is changing our experience with the text, and it's opening up new ways to look at the same story, characters, and themes. And that process is temporal, right? It's occurring throughout our lives as every time we return to the books, reading those books in childhood, young adulthood, middle, and old age, all of that is change. Coming back to these books that we imprinted on so young and analyzing them in the course of this podcast, that's sort of like gobbling up all this historical and scholarly information. This is truly, I love what you said before, Reagan, about learning being a luxury, but it's also a joy.
It's absolutely a joy. One of the things that's changed for us in the course of doing this pod is really the true understanding of how wide Anne of Green Gables reaches. And sure, we were aware at the beginning that Anne of Green Gables has always been popular and well read out in the world. But aside from being fans in our own quiet ways before doing this podcast, like giving nods of recognition when someone else referred to Anne or PEI, we didn't really understand that readers of Anne were a specific community. And it wasn't until we got into this, whenever we would post like in an online space about having a podcast, it never failed. We'd get a flurry of responses, all being thrilled that someone was spending time talking about this book. Finally, everybody was saying. We heard that over and over. Anne fans, Ella Montgomery fans are everywhere, but they don't have a space to congregate, especially if they can't come to PEI. And while plenty of folks who love Anne are content to have read the books and left them in their childhood, and Anne is mostly a figure of nostalgia for them. There's so many readers who are coming back to or discovering the books as adults and want to engage both enthusiastically and critically with them. So what we found is that as our podcast started to find its footing, is that listening to podcasts is one way that people feel like they can do that they can both go in depth on something they love and then feel like they're in community with other people who love the same thing, even if that community is just two ladies with mics.
Well, two ladies with mics and now an expanded universe of guests. We really love that we get to sort of like help our listeners expand their own Montgomery communities and build the bridge between enjoying the books as a reader and appreciating it as a scholar or an artist or an expert. And so today we are excited and happy to bring to our listeners at home the perspectives and insights of everybody in this room today. And the Kindred Spirits community continues to expand and grow. And if you are listening, you know that you are a part of it.
Even this live format is a great example of changing how we're engaging with this material. Because, right, normally it's just the two of us, maybe us and a guest chatting over Zoom, and we aren't perceived. This is kind of weird, like being perceived to doing this in the same way. In one of the panels we were in on that first day about teaching L. Montgomery, I think Blair McDonald asked us if we were interested in doing video, and we're like, hell no, absolutely not. That sounds like the worst idea.
I think this might be the first time we've done this wearing something other than pajamas.
But all of you guys are here today and welcome. So now we get to do the interactive portion of the show.
Yes. I have a slide. Okay, everybody. Yes, thank you for being here. Thank you for staying late again. I know it's been a long day. So we can't wait to hear some of your guys' insights. As we were saying, having guests changes the podcast, and you, our lovely audience, are all our guests today. So I've put up a few different questions and prompts. If you'd like to answer them, please come on up, raise your hand. However we want to make that work, we can play it by ear. So we're first going to go with some of these preset prompts that I've come up with. If you do have questions for us, we can do that afterwards.
Yeah, so we'll do like 15 minutes of like prompts. We would love to hear comments, and then we'll do like some time for like ask us anything questions.
Yes.
With reason. Because I can edit anything I don't want to. Be as cheeky as you want.
Yeah, be as cheeky as you want. That's fine with me. I love cheekiness.
Okay, so here's our question.
How has your experience with the books changed over time? How has your perspective on these books changed from engaging with different media, right? We talked about a lot of forms of different media that people choose to interpret Ella Montgomery's works with. And have you had conversations in your own Kindred Spirits book clubs that have changed the way you see these books? And how did that go for you? So that picture, by the way, up there with us in like the little like book maze, that's from the Last Bookstore in Los Angeles. If you guys are ever in LA, you have to go there. It's an amazing bookstore. It's like an actual maze made of books that you walk through. It's so beautiful. It's like every book lover's fever dream. And if you're in LA, obviously reach out to us so we can hang out.
If you're in LA, send us an email. We'll hang. All right, podcast guest who wants to come share some things with us.
Who wants to be impromptu podcast guest?
Thank you.
Brave soul, brave soul.
My name is Erin Wood, and I want to tell you how the Anne books and Maud books how I've experienced them has changed over time. So I think I first sort of met Maud through Anne, and that was through my beautiful, amazing Aunt Christy Worcester, and also my amazing grandma, Penelope Schreck. So they introduced me to her, and I was like, wow, somebody who talks as much as me, somebody who gets into scrapes as much as me. But yeah, it's all true. But then, that was amazing. And I sort of experienced her as a child, as a sort of a preteen. And then as I reread and went back and visited Anne, I'm sort of speaking specifically about Anne, I guess, I realized that how I read that book, sort of the lens I was identifying or looking at it through changed. I was, revisiting her when I was 20. And then I was a different version of Anne in that sort of moment. But then rereading her again, the Anne book specifically as a mother, was a whole different, amazing, crazy, wow, things I used to think, what? I now get why that happened. But I also then met Emily and Pat and all the other amazing characters that Maud has read. So I think every time you go back, depending on where you are in your own life, you read it from a different perspective. You see things differently. You see things you maybe missed because when you read it previously, you were somebody else. So definitely my experience has changed over time for the positive every time. And I think you can go back and find something new every single time.
Yeah. I could not agree more. And I remember when Reagan and I were first covering Anna the Island, one of the things that we were talking about just as we were brainstorming the podcast was how like both of us, like our first week of college, went back and reread that book because we're like, well, now we're in the same age. So that's very much that experience. Thank you, Erin, for sort of breaking the ice. Would anybody else like to come up? All right. Come on up, Rebecca. Brave souls, brave souls.
So I'm Rebecca Thompson, and my experience with the books changed. I read them in my teens and 20s is when I remember reading them. But when I went to grad school and had to choose a thesis topic, I was like, the Emily trilogy. And I was actually told by a couple of people, don't pick something you love because you'll hate it by the end. And I was like, I'm doing it. And by the time of the end, I was like, there's so much more here. I love them even more. So and that was when a friend on Facebook was like, have you heard of this conference? And it blew my mind that there was an entire conference just about, and that's how I ended up here. And doing that research and digging into more of the books that way and discovering all the different ways people are looking at it, talking about different media, I discovered along the way the Green Gables Fables YouTube series, which was like a fan-created video blog, modern retelling of Anne. And I ended up doing a presentation on that. And so just seeing how many different people were engaging it in so many different ways has continued to spark new ideas and new creativity in me as I continue to grow as an academic and a person.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'm Debbie Thompson, Becca's mom, and she's my kindred spirit in this area. And so when I was introduced to them, probably when I had young children, we saw the series and then we went and read the books. That's as far as I could remember my first introduction. And then now as Rebecca's done the research and all this, and we have these great, well, I can't say we have conversations. She talks and I listen. And that's okay.
If you want a support group, we'll give you our moms.
I'm sorry. I can listen to the podcast if she's. So it's really changed how I see the books. They're not just fun books to read, which is how I started, but there's actually depth there and things to learn and process. And so it's been an exciting journey as I've followed along with Rebecca.
I'm Emily Worcester, and I can piggyback on a lot of these answers and talk about how my experience with the book has changed, but also sort of not changed. So I'm Emily, my sister is Anne. We are named after the books. So it was personal before it was ever professional, but it's also very professional for me. This is my career as an academic, but my colleagues who don't know Montgomery, and this has happened for the entirety of my career, they ask me all the time, how do you balance the personal and professional? Like, it's kind of what you're talking about. How do you study something that is so incredibly personally important to you? But for me, I've never known any different. I've never known a world without Montgomery. And so in that way, some of my experience has never changed. It's always been, this is like a central pillar of my life, both in the personal, the professional, the family connections, all of there's stories about who gave us a book. And one of my favorite parts about talking about Montgomery with people, finding kindred spirits to talk to about it, is that we can't help but share our Montgomery story. Everyone you talk to, the first thing they say is, oh, my teacher gave me that book, or I saw the miniseries and then I read, or everybody has a Montgomery story. And I love that Montgomery somehow transcends the personal, the professional, it's not just a really good book. It's a story in and of itself. And that's my favorite part. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Benjamin Lefebvre, and I have a slightly different experience, in part because of gender, but also in part because of a project that I've been involved with, which is re-editing all of Montgomery's shorter works. So for me, one of the ways that has helped me change my perspective of her books is not the influence of later adaptations and later reimaginings, but going backward to even earlier renderings of well-known characters, storylines, settings, and even conversations. And what is sometimes uncomfortable is how seeing where something started. So in a late chapter of Emily of New Moon, Emily has a first encounter with a man who named Dean Priest, who is old enough to be her father. And if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. But suffice it to say that in an audiobook recording of it, narrated by Megan Follows, they didn't really know what to do with this character, so they just cut him out entirely, right? So in my last volume of Montgomery shorter works, I included a serial called Four Winds, which has nothing to do with the setting of Anne's House of Dreams, also called Four Winds. It was republished later on as Windy Willows at a time that Montgomery was writing a book that she meant to call Anne of Windy Willows, but it has nothing to do with that book either. But that scene where a man rescues a child who has reached for flowers, that she's falling, she's on the edge of a cliff, I think I'll wait for you. That scene originates from this serial between a man and a woman, and it is more overtly romantic and sexual. And I cannot, well, oddly enough, I read that serial in the 90s because it was collected. I had no recollection of this. Working on this for for that edition now haunts by reading of that scene in Emily. I can't unsee that. Because scholars are like, she's 12 and but but it's for children, blah 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 blah, right? But when you're like, no, this was a man and a woman, and it was narrated from his perspective, and he's definitely into her that way. Yeah.
Yikes.
So sometimes when you see how the sausage has been made, it changes. It changes. I am not very coherent right now, but this is my story.
Amazing.
I'm Julie Sellers, and I think thinking back over how my experience with the books has changed, in each moment that I return to Anne, I feel like it's another expression of finding my voice.
Yeah.
And I think I tie that back to the first copy that I got, that idea of your origin story again. It was a bribe to make me be quiet on a car drive. And it worked. The family was much happier when I wasn't chattering and grumbling about how unhappy I was on this long car drive. But that was my first introduction. And then I read the rest, ironically, when I was riding a bus to go to driver's ed. Every time I turned back to them, I found something else. Another highlight that comes to mind is that my wonderful husband suggested we come to Prince Edward Island for our honeymoon 20 years ago. Once he said it, I told him there were no takebacks. And he, as the good egg and good sport he is, has come with us each time. I am a Spanish professor by trade, and yet this wonderfully welcoming community has allowed me to explore topics that are related to studies on identity, quixotic novels, and so on. And I think every time I turn back, I know there's always space for me, so I know there's always space for everybody else in Montgomery.
Oh, I love that voice.
Hi, my name's Mary Beth Cavert, and before I start, I wondered if I could ask you when you're listening to a podcast and you're walking a dog, what kind of dog should you be walking?
Only corgis.
Okay, thank you. Got that. I'll talk seriously now. Honestly, I will. I haven't talked seriously the whole week. I've just been making jokes the whole time because I'm nervous. But now I will tell you something about me and this experience. I didn't read the books till I was 40 years old back in 1928. But no, not quite that. Well, post World War II. And I had a daughter with red hair, and my colleagues at school said, you probably need to read Anne of Green Gables. And so I did, and I just loved it. And then at the same time, the journals were coming out, the movies were out. I saw them later, not when they first came out. And I said, this is fun. This is fun. And then I continued to be interested in it. And when these conferences started in 1994, I came to the first one and I heard someone give a paper on, and she said that Anne could, Montgomery could write well about, wrote about friendship because she didn't have good friendships of her own. And I thought, no, that's wrong. And I want to do this. I decided I wanted to, and I could do this.
Mhm.
So I decided to research her friendship. So I have been doing her book dedications. And what that was, I'm not an academic. So I came at it as a fan and jumped into some academic circles and carved out a corner for myself to explore. And that's just been a joyful experience ever since then. And because I'm doing the literary society stuff and I do quotes on social media, I don't go into the second question about this, all the other iterations, the Montgomery adjacent things. It's so much.
Yeah.
So I'm just sticking with the words. I'll keep that one. I'm going to keep the one corner and I'll put the Montgomery words out there and let people do with them what they want and let everybody enjoy that.
I love that.
Did I win?
I'll tell you later.
Oh, great. I'll try not to do a pratfall on my way.
Good news, not a visual medium.
I'm going to be real quick. I want to answer the second question about how my view of Anna specifically has changed with engaging with different media. Sorry, I'm John Wilcox. At the beginning of the conference this year, there was a poet, Vilma Blenman, that read, or I shouldn't even say read because she had, she spoke it from memory, but she recited her poem, Meeting Anne Shirley. And for the rest of my life, when I think of Anne Shirley, I will also imagine a young girl taking a bite of a freckled mango. Yeah.
Yes.
And I love that. And I just that one line, it's to me, it's almost up with Proof Rock's eating a peach, right? Like it'll just be stuck in my head for the rest of my life. So that's how one piece of media changed my view of a character.
That's amazing.
I love that. Guys, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing. That was really special. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Ask us anything. If you want to peek behind the podcast curtain, if there's something you've been dying to ask us, this is your moment. Oh, we got to take her. That was quick. She's like, what gives you the right?
No, okay. Sorry, my name's Catherine Magrodi, and I think I have the opposite question for you, because you guys said that you weren't pros, but you're a psychologist and you're a lawyer. So I'm curious to see.
We're pros at other things.
Yes, but like, how do those professional methodologies of engaging with personal narrative and constructing stories for different purposes help you engage with character and theme?
Ooh, excellent. Deep question.
I love that question. And the answer is yes. I'll speak for myself first because Reagan's going to have more to say on this, I think, than me. And for me, I'm at a point in my career where I'm not doing litigation the same way I was. But, I think a big part of being a courtroom attorney is storytelling. And it's understanding your story and understanding your client's story and knowing how to communicate that well to the adjudicating party. And so that makes me think about story a lot. It makes me think about point of view a lot. That makes me think about perspective a lot. And it's something that I'm always attuned to as a reader. Who is seeing this? Who's telling us this? How reliable is the narration? And I think that's all from my legal training. And I will let Reagan pick up the rest.
Well, so I'm a child and family therapist. And so that definitely affects the way I read these books, especially now as an adult, which of course was not part of how I read the books as a child. So one of the things specific in the podcast is we've done some, what we call a birch path is for those of you who haven't listened to pod, the structures, we'll do story club, which is our general theme of the episode. And then we'll do what's called a birch path, which is kind of a research or a tangent that came up in that episode, either something we wanted to learn more about. So I've been well known to do birch paths on things related to child and family, because Maud she might not have studied child development, but she is spot on with so many things. And so being able to talk about and explore like, oh, I can explain what's happening here and I can explain it through a child development perspective. Or I can,
for 1 second.
Yeah.
You taught me about parentification, and I now think about it all the time when I'm reading it or seeing other things.
You're welcome. Right. So like that was a good example. Like I did kind of tear John Meredith up in when we did Rainbow Valley about the parentification of the children. And so I kind of did a little like mini explainer of what that is and then the way that shows up in particularly Una and Faith. But she nails those developmental stages. Many of her characters are so directly on. We talked about like the developmental stage of being a teenager when we were talking about Rilla and really experiencing like the way that Rilla, she's so good at capturing Rilla at 15 and all those things that are happening there. So I think about it a lot and I bring that in a lot because that's kind of the lens I see the world through now. And that's been a really fascinating way to experience these books. So other questions? Try and top that one.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Maybe I can yell it. I don't know.
Yeah, let's yell it.
Would you ever do a cutting floor episode? Like the things or what is the hardest thing you had to cut from an episode?
Oh, the kill your darlings question.
Yeah,
This is that's a really tough one because we have lots of darlings. And I think that especially comes with our like conversations with guests a lot of the time. If it's just Reagan and I messing around, it's like, it's fine. We'll get back to it some other
Are
time.
you talking about the fact that we talked for 4 minutes?
Yes. Emily's just like, where's the part 2 of our conversation?
Yeah. Well, that's actually that's a great question because it has been really like the joy of having guests on has been anybody we're interested in talking to comes on and talks to us and we can geek out for hours, literally 4 hours. And it's so much fun, but right, like when you're putting it together in a podcast, trying to decide what is telling the story for a listener who doesn't get to be in the room and putting that together is really hard. There have been so many good like pieces of discussion. I wish I could remember them all. We certainly have I have all the original raw episode. Maybe someday we'd put up a Patreon and people can pay us for the joy of hearing our of this. But that's sort of the fun thing. Like when you think about some of your favorite conversations with friends where you really get on a roll and you just keep going and you're like, you had an amazing idea. Now I have an amazing idea. And it's so much fun to do that. It is really hard. In fact, sometimes I think our guest episodes are the hardest for me to edit because when it's just Kelly and I kind of know everything we say is valuable. Truly, deeply in the deepest, darkest parts of my heart. Everything we say is so valuable. Brutal. But those are a little easier to edit because it's just the two of us. But when we get to the chance to talk to an expert and like everything out of their mouth is either super funny. Emily is a very funny guest. If anybody else have a podcast, please have Emily on as a guest. Like whether it's funny or it's just a gem, like it hurts to have to cut stuff out. I think we had Kate Scarth on and we had this whole lovely tangent about perfumes and how obsessed we were with like the perfume discussion. And I was like, oh yeah, that was fun, but I guess that's gotta go. It was hard. Like there's so many fun things that happen. Also, there is, as I said, a lot of middle school tea. So I track that on our cutting room floor.
Have you fangirled yourself when you've come to the conference, when you've been in your work and having guests? And if so, like, what was that? Who was that or why?
Like, who did we fangirl?
Yes. And
oh, Lord.
Laura Robinson, I think, was our first. I think she was our first like conference crush. Like we heard her talk and we're like, how do we get this lady to come on our podcast?
I still sort of can't look her in the eye sometimes. But this has been an experience that we've had over and over and over again, right? We will hear someone else speak or we'll read something that they've written and think, oh my God, this is like a brilliant angel. Surely they could never speak to the likes of us mortals. And then we shoot an email or, sometimes pester with several emails. And, if you build it, they will come. And we've been absolutely privileged to have so many conversations with our many conference crushes or research crushes. Again, I think that ties back to our mission of wanting to sort of like democratize education and make this something that everybody can listen to. This is free. You don't have to be a English major or anything like that. You can just listen and learn for the pure love of it. So we feel we're really, really grateful. Hello.
So I'm Melanie Fishbane. Hi. I have a number of questions.
She's got a list.
I got a list. But I think I'm going to focus on, I'm actually really intrigued. I've listened to a number of your episodes, and I am so impressed by the amount of research you both do. So I would love to know some of the processes in which you approach research. Where are the places you may go? And then perhaps as you're just talking about it, maybe the thing that surprised you. I always find that question kind of interesting.
Yeah. So first, hold on, I got to tell everybody this because we left our first conference 2 years ago and we're like, I don't think we totally embarrassed ourselves. And we maybe told a few people about the podcast. We were very feeling the imposter syndrome. Everybody there is so smart. And Melanie messaged us like 3 days later and said that she had listened to our Gilbert Blythe episode on the way home and that it was good. And I was like, it was like the nicest thing. I was like, I screenshotted it and sent it to Kelly like 10 seconds later.
That's the kind of stuff that really puts the wind under our sails. We're like, it's not all in vain.
Definitely not.
So, okay, so research for me really does start with the books. And I actually think our keynote today was really like right on the point with this, where she was talking about, it might not be in alignment with like proper sort of academic training, but reading the books and just like sussing out the vibes and like what's my instinctive reaction to something, that's going to be the starting place. And then you start looking around to see if anybody else is thinking what you're thinking, right? And I will say that it's a lot of the work that is online and easily accessible at lmmi.com is incredibly useful.
Shout out.
So thank you. That is a resource. The Anne manuscript, of course, incredibly helpful. All of these things are just up there and free because this is like the most generous academic community you could possibly imagine. And, we are building out our bookshelves as well and finding things. But I think a lot of times it really does start with personal impression. So I will just say like our perspectives, whether just as readers or from our lived experience, that's kind of where things will start. And then we'll look around to see who else is having these same conversations and, start asking questions.
Well, and I think, right, like we start, and I'm going to give my husband a shout out because I think I made him listen to, I don't know. Well, shout out Steve. He listens to almost all of our episodes. So good job, Steve. But when we did our recap episode, we come to, of Anne of Green Gables, one of our very first episodes, we come to the liniment cake. And we were both like, I don't know what anodyne liniment is. I don't know. Do you know either? And he's like, why didn't you research that? And if you have that question, other people might have that question. And that's actually how we kind of came up with that idea of the birch path. And a lot of it starts from, as we were doing this, what question did we have? Like, what did we want to know more that would provide context or explain something? And some of this is just like, you start Googling and see what pops up and follow some trails. Like we talked about like the one room schoolhouse thing on PEI and how they were every 5 miles. And we're like, did not know that. But when we started thinking a little bit about Miss Stacy, we wanted to know more about that experience. So really, it starts from kind of what questions do we have as we read it? What do we not want to know more about it? And then let that guide our research.
Great. Thank you.
And sometimes we do a birch path 20 minutes before we record an episode. And then it's like your top 5 Google results.
That's true.
I wish I could say we were always like very deep and thorough in our research, but we're busy ladies.
Sometimes you get what you pay for.
Hate to break it to y'all. Uh-oh, I see another person with their bingo sheet.
So, 2-part question.
Uh-huh.
The first is, so, Bunsen and Beaker.
The Muppets. Uh-huh.
What category of Muppet would you refer to Beaker at?
Okay, so Beaker is the Chaos Muppet.
Okay. Thank you.
And as for a show of hands, who is the Chaos Muppet of this podcast?
Any guesses between the two of us of which one of us is the Chaos Muppet and wasn't? Can I tell you guys something about Kelly and the Chaos Muppet of it all? When she's not allowed to write the recap episodes. We do a recap of each book at the beginning of a season. So no matter where you are, we'll orient you. She's not allowed to write them because the girl does not write in chronological order.
That's not how I experience the books. Time is a circle.
So yes, she's the Chaos Muppet. So I have to go back and be like, that didn't happen yet. It's like, put it in order. But that's where we get genius.
So speaking of recaps, do you remember that one novel that is set entirely in Ontario?
Newcastle?
Yes. Bingo.
Very canny, very canny.
Oh my God.
Talk about a chaos agent.
Hi, gals. I'm Kate Scarth. So congratulations on finishing 5 seasons on Anna of Green Gables series. Thank you. And you let us know that next up is Emily of New Moon. So what's next? Do you have plans for future seasons? Can you tell us
what's
about
after Emily?
possibility- Yes, what's after Emily?
Okay, so Emily, and then probably Pat, and then division. If you have hot takes on Pat, start thinking now. Because let me tell you, I'll tell you this too with Emily, because we haven't plotted the season out. We're like, we got to get through the conference and then we'll think about.
Yeah.
Like we haven't even gotten there yet. So if you have a Emily hot take or something you deeply want us to talk about on Emily, email us.
Yeah.
And then we might ask you to be on the pod. Dean Priest. Oh, we might have thoughts.
His age.
Yeah. So you would be right, like email us and like then we just might invite you on the pod and then you can do the episode and we'll be like, tell us more.
So yeah, after Emily, Pat, and then after Pat, we, with all credit to Rebecca Thompson, I think we're then going to do The Blue Castle and Jane of Lantern Hill together because Rebecca today in her presentation talked about how these books are like kind of mirror images of each other in a lot of ways. And we thought that was too delicious to turn down. So
But we're like, yeah. So I think that's probably, and then we'll probably throw in somewhere Magic for Marigold and A Tangled Web. I don't know. Sometimes it becomes revealed as you go, like how things are going to shape.
sometimes you just like have a gut feeling of like, you know what, we better do Kilmeny of the Orchard now because I know we're not going to want to do it later. Let's rip off the Band-Aid. So we did that one like in our first or second season because I was just like, I got to get this one out of the way.
So
Yes.
listen, that's a lot of homework. So maybe when my kid graduates from high school. No,
Here's
we
the
do
problem
want
with
to.
doing the journals. It's like, I think it's like, it's not a problem. I mean, we will get there and it's going to be fun, but it's going to make us want to redo the whole thing.
Yeah.
I think that would work.
Listen, you're not 100% wrong on that because already, like, and this is a little bit of the problem, right? Like, we come to the conference and we hear people's absolutely amazing presentations, and we're like, damn it, we just did that season, right? Whereas, like, if only we had heard that thought then or whatever. So already we can look back on our first season and be Anne of Green Gables itself and think, wow, there is a lot of other things we would really, really love to explore and talk. We didn't know all you guys then either. So now we've got so many more people to invite on. And so the idea of maybe doing that in conjunction with reading some of her journals and discussing that, we'll kind of have to see. We have a general idea of like the shape of the podcast in general. And then when we approach a season, we kind of start mapping it out, but that changes as we go.
Yeah.
Like sometimes we're like, yeah, I think this is the order of the episode. And then we get in there, we're like, actually, I don't think that's going to work, or we're going to move stuff around, or new ideas kind of.
And things can happen like in pop culture too that are going to impact how we do things, right? So if all of a sudden somebody decides to do like a really dramatic new adaptation of Pat, like that's going to change how we do that series, or you know,
Right.
So we try to stay really nimble.
Yeah. So I do think at some point we'll talk about the journals and we'll read them all, but it'll probably be a little bit.
Can I ask something?
Yeah.
Mike?
Please.
I also have a question.
No, I'm taking bingo real seriously. Also, I just have to ask, Ben, when did you cross off undignified giggling?
Okay, I'll get to my bingo card in a minute. It's Melanie again. So I want to let you know that the other night I have written a book, Maud. That's not why I came here.
Finish your read it.
But that's not the reason. But at this author dinner that I was asked to go to, there was a question about Gilbert Blythe and him as a parent. And I used your discussion on Gilbert parenting Rilla when you talked about that, because I felt like the person who had asked the question was like, I don't know if I like Gilbert in the other books. And admittedly, I also have questions about Gilbert in the other books, which is a whole other thing. But I really appreciated your professional perspective on Gilbert parenting Rilla. And so I use that when I talked. I even mentioned the podcast.
Thanks.
You're welcome. So
also
the
thanks
whole
for
point I wanted to make is every one of us in this room, we come to the conference with perspectives and ideas. And every one of us in this room, I could probably say this in complete certainty. Somebody says something, we're like, man, I got to rethink my entire paper.
Yes, 100%.
Right? I honestly think I have to rethink my entire paper for Sunday,
Yes.
and I'm not going to. So
Late.
it's way too late for that. So my whole point is that is actually part of the joy of Montgomery studies and everything like that. Yeah. So, and then my other question to you is, who is the perfect boyfriend in the Blue Castle?
Oh, it's a guy, right?
It's a guy.
What was his name? Bernard?
No. I will never understand how Ellen Montgomery wrote like the romantic hero of my dreams personally, and then had the audacity to name him Barney Smith.
I know. There you go.
Kate, you're the last question.
Okay.
Make it a good one.
All right. This is Kate Scarth again. Could you do a comparative reading of
No.
Montgomery's work and Heated Rivalry?
I have been waiting for this moment. That is actually next season's.
Yeah, we're scrapping Emily. We're doing Heated Rivalry.
Okay, you guys, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for being here. It was so fun. A new achievement unlocked for us. Okay, so I guess if you got bingo/blackout, bring it up here and we'll
Also
give you prizes.
Yeah, if you came and you cheered, come up anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much.